The war had lasted 30 years. 30 years of burning planets, dying soldiers, and mothers who never saw their children again. The Empire had ships that could destroy moons. They had warriors who stood 8 feet tall with skin like armor. They had weapons that humans could not even understand. But humans did not die easily. The Terran coalition had lost battle after battle. They had lost colonies, space stations, and millions of lives. Yet they kept fighting. They hid in asteroid fields and struck from the shadows. They built new ships from the broken pieces of old ones. They refused to surrender. Emperor Knox watched the war reports from his throne and felt something he had never felt before: frustration. His generals had promised him victory in 5 years, then 10, then 20. Now, 30 years later, the humans were still fighting. His advisors told him the truth he did not want to hear. The Empire was bleeding, not dying but bleeding. The war was costing too much. Other enemies were watching, waiting for weakness. So Emperor Knox did something unexpected. He offered peace. The terms were simple: a political marriage between his third daughter, Princess Vila, and a human chosen by Earth. The marriage would bind their species together. It would end the war and begin a new age of cooperation. The Terran High Council received the offer in their underground bunker on Earth. They argued for 7 days. Some called it a trick. Others called it their only hope. In the end, they accepted. Now they needed to choose a groom. General slammed his fist on the table. We should send our best diplomat, someone who can negotiate, who can charm them. Admiral shook her head. The respect strength, not words. We need a warrior. A warrior they will kill the moment he offends them, General replied. The argument continued until a young intelligence officer named Park spoke up. She was not supposed to be in this meeting, but no one had asked her to leave. There is one man, she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. He is a Special Operations Commander. His record is classified at the highest level. She paused. They call him the Reaper. General frowned. I have never heard of him. That is the point, said. He has completed 42 black operations. He was the sole survivor of the siege of Titan 7. He has killed more enemies than most battalions, and he looks like an ordinary man. They will underestimate him. Admiral leaned forward. Why would such a man agree to this? It is essentially exile. Looked down at her tablet. He volunteered. When he heard about the marriage offer, he sent a message to High Command. He said he has spent his whole life taking lives. He wants to save some for once. The council voted that night, would marry the alien princess. 3 weeks later, stood in a small room on a space station at the border between human and territory. He wore a simple black uniform. No medals, no decorations. His face was plain, his body lean but not impressive. He had short black hair and tired eyes that had seen too much death. Park stood beside him, adjusting his collar. Are you sure about this? She asked softly. No, admitted, but I am sure about nothing anymore. At least this might mean something. The doors opened and walked into the ceremonial hall. The delegation filled one side of the room. They were magnificent and terrifying. Their skin was pale blue, their eyes golden, their bodies tall and powerful. They wore armor that glowed with energy, and they looked at like he was an insect. At the center stood Princess Vila. She was beautiful in a way that was almost painful to look at. Her silver hair flowed like water. Her golden eyes held centuries of pride. She wore a white gown that seemed made of starlight. She was royalty in every sense of the word. And she looked at with barely hidden disgust. This was the human they had sent. This small, plain, tired-looking man. She had expected a general, a hero, someone worthy of an imperial princess. Instead, she received someone who looked like he had not slept in years. The ceremony was short. Words were spoken in both languages. Documents were signed. When the officiant asked if they would accept each other, Vila said yes through clenched teeth. simply nodded. They were married. Afterward there was a reception. Nobles gathered in small groups, whispering and starring. Vila stood alone near a window, looking out at the stars. Approached her slowly. He stopped a respectful distance away and bowed his head. "Princess," he said. His voice was quiet but steady. Vila did not look at him. "You may call me by my name. We are married now after all, though I suspect neither of us wanted this." "I volunteered," said. Vila finally turned to look at him. "Why? What could you possibly gain from this?" Was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I have spent my life in war. I have killed so many that I stopped counting. I thought perhaps I could do something different, something that might bring peace instead of death." Vila studied him. He did not look away. There was something in his eyes, something she could not quite understand. Pain, perhaps, or exhaustion, or something deeper. "You are strange for a human," she said finally. "I am strange for anyone," replied. Despite herself, Vila almost smiled. Almost. "I will be honest with you," she said. "I do not expect anything from this marriage. You are here for politics, and so am I. We will live separate lives under the same roof. That is all." Nodded. "I understand, but I want you to know one thing." "What is that?" He looked at her directly, and for just a moment Vila saw something flash in his tired eyes, something sharp and cold and absolute. "I will protect you," he said. "No matter what happens, that is my vow." Vila almost laughed. This small human protect her? She was a princess. She had been trained in combat since childhood. She had guards who could crush mountains. But she did not laugh. Something in his voice stopped her. "Very well," she said coolly. "Keep your vow if you can, human." Bowed again and stepped back. Vila turned back to the window, dismissing him from her thoughts. She had married a human to end a war. That was all this was, a political tool, nothing more. She did not know how wrong she was. She did not know that the quiet man standing behind her had walked through fire and blood more times than she could imagine. She did not know that he had killed enemies in the dark while the galaxy slept. She did not know that the Terran military had classified him as their most lethal asset. She only saw a tired man with sad eyes. And that was exactly what wanted everyone to see. It was called. It was a planet of impossible beauty. Crystal towers reached toward purple skies. Rivers of liquid silver flowed through ancient cities. The air itself seemed to glow with soft light. Arrived on a diplomatic shuttle, surrounded by guards who looked at him like he was something dirty they had stepped in. He did not react. He simply walked with his head down, following where they led. The Imperial Palace was the largest structure had ever seen. It could have held entire cities inside its walls. The halls were lined with statues of ancient heroes, warriors who had conquered star systems before humans had learned to make fire. Servants stopped and stared as passed. They whispered to each other in their musical language. He caught a few words he understood: weak, small, pathetic. He kept walking. Princess Vila met him at the entrance to the royal quarters. She wore armor now, elegant and deadly, marking her status as a warrior of the empire. She looked at like one might look at an unwanted gift. "These are your chambers," she said, gesturing to a door. "You will have servants to attend to your needs. You may move freely within the palace, but you will not leave without permission. Do you understand?" "Yes," said. Vila waited, perhaps expecting him to argue or complain. He did neither. "Good," she said finally. "I have duties to attend to. We will see each other at formal events. Otherwise, I expect we will have little reason to interact." She turned and walked away without another word. Entered his chambers. They were larger than any home he had ever lived in. The ceiling was painted with stars. The furniture was made of materials he could not name. A window looked out over the glowing city below. He set down his small bag of belongings and sat on the edge of the bed. For a long moment, he simply breathed. Then he stood up and began to explore. Over the next few weeks, learned the palace. He walked its corridors, memorized its layout, noted its exits and entrances. He did this quietly, always appearing lost or confused when guards questioned him. He learned the language. He had always been good with languages, and he spent every night studying, practicing, listening to servants talk when they thought he could not understand. Most importantly, he trained. Every morning before the sun rose, went to the palace courtyards. He ran until his lungs burned. He did exercises that pushed his body to its limits. Then he practiced combat forms, the ones he had learned over 20 years of war. At first, no one noticed. Then the servants began to talk. "The human wakes before dawn," one whispered to another. "He runs for hours, he never stops. I saw him practicing with a blade. His movements were very fast." The talk reached the ears of the palace guards. A group of young warriors decided to investigate. They found in the courtyard one morning, moving through a series of combat positions. "Look at this," one guard laughed. He was named a massive with arms like tree trunks. "The little human thinks he is a warrior." His companions laughed with him. Stopped his movements. He looked at the guards calmly. "I am just exercising," he said in careful, "I mean no offense." Stepped closer. He was nearly 3 feet taller than, "You speak our language now. How cute. Tell me, human, do you actually think you can fight, or are you just playing games?" Was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I have some small skill." The guards laughed harder. "Some small skill," repeated mockingly. "Perhaps you would like to show us a friendly match, unless you are afraid." Looked at the guards. There were 5 of them, all trained warriors, all twice his size. He thought about what would happen if he fought them. He thought about the political consequences, the diplomatic incident it might cause. Then he thought about the fact that he had not had a real fight in months, and some dark part of him missed it. "I would not want to cause trouble," said softly. Grinned, "No trouble, just training. Come, human, show us what you can do." Considered for another moment. Then he shook his head. "Another time, perhaps I should go." He walked away, leaving the guards laughing behind him. Word spread quickly. The human was a coward. He had refused to fight, had run away from a simple challenge. Servants snickered when he passed. Guards openly mocked him. Vila heard the stories. She felt a strange mixture of disappointment and relief. Disappointment because she had hoped, just slightly, that her husband might be something more than he appeared. Relief because a weak husband was easier to ignore. But her younger brother, Prince, was not so quick to judge. Was different from the other royals. He was curious, thoughtful, more interested in knowledge than conquest. He had studied humans during the war, tried to understand them. Now he studied. One evening, he came to Vila's chambers with a data tablet. "I found something interesting," he said. Vila looked up from her reading. "About what?" "About your husband." Vila sighed. "I do not care about his embarrassment in the courtyard. He is what he is." "This is not about that," sat down across from her. "I have been trying to access his military records, the human files. Most of them are heavily encrypted, beyond anything I have seen before." "So, humans are paranoid about security." "Yes, but I managed to decrypt a small portion, just fragments." Paused. "Vila, they call him the Reaper." Vila raised an eyebrow. "A dramatic name. Humans love dramatic names." "He has completed over 40 classified missions. The details are deleted, but I found casualty reports from the other side. Enemy casualty reports." Leaned forward. "In one mission, a single human operative killed 37 soldiers in one night. The report called him a ghost, said he moved through their base like a shadow and left no survivors." Vila was quiet. "There is more," continued. "The siege of Titan 7, you remember it. We lost an entire assault force there, over 200 warriors." "Yes, And according to what I found, there was one human defender who survived the entire siege. For 3 weeks, he held a position alone against constant attacks. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found him surrounded by bodies. Looked at his sister. His name was. Vila stared at her brother. That cannot be right. The man I married can barely look anyone in the eye. He runs from challenges. Perhaps, said slowly, or perhaps he is smarter than we think. A warrior who hides his strength is far more dangerous than one who shows it. That night, Vila watched from her window. He was in the courtyard again, moving through his combat forms in the moonlight. His movements were smooth, precise, almost beautiful in their efficiency. She watched for nearly an hour. He never stopped, never slowed, never made a single wasted motion. When he finally finished, he stood still in the silver light, breathing steadily. Then he looked up, directly at her window. Their eyes met across the darkness. Vila stepped back quickly, her heart suddenly beating faster. Had he known she was watching the whole time? How was that possible? She told herself it was nothing, a coincidence. The human was nobody special. But deep down, a small voice whispered that she might be wrong. And Princess Vila was not used to being wrong about anything. 3 months passed on. The peace held, though it was fragile. Old hatreds did not disappear easily, and many on both sides still dreamed of war. A diplomatic summit was scheduled on neutral ground, a space station that floated between and human territory. Representatives from both species would meet to discuss trade, borders, and the future of their uneasy alliance. Princess Vila was chosen to lead the delegation, as her husband would accompany her. It was expected, part of the political show. On the morning of their departure, Vila found waiting at the shuttle. He wore a simple dark suit, no weapons visible, no armor. He looked like a servant, not a consort of royalty. "You could dress better," Vila said coldly. "You represent the Empire now." "I am comfortable," replied. Vila shook her head and boarded the shuttle without another word. The journey took 2 days. They barely spoke, spent most of his time staring out at the stars, lost in thoughts he never shared. Vila read reports and prepared for negotiations. But she found herself watching him sometimes. The way he sat perfectly still for hours. The way his eyes tracked every movement around him, even when he seemed to be resting. The way his hands were never far from his body, always ready. She remembered what had told her. The Reaper, 40 missions, sole survivor. She still did not believe it, but she was no longer certain. The summit station was enormous, a city floating in space. Ships from dozens of worlds docked at its ports. Thousands of beings walked its corridors, speaking hundreds of languages. The delegation was given luxurious quarters near the top of the station. Vila had meetings scheduled throughout the week, negotiations that would shape the future of both their peoples. On the 3rd night, there was a reception. All the major delegations gathered in a grand ballroom filled with lights and music. It was meant to be a celebration of peace, a chance for former enemies to mingle as friends. Vila wore a gown of deep blue that matched her royal status, walked 3 steps behind her, silent and unnoticed, just another shadow in the crowd. The reception went smoothly at first. Vila spoke with diplomats and generals, accepting compliments and making careful promises. She was good at this, the game of words and power. Then she encountered Lord Merk. Merk was a high noble from one of the oldest families. He had opposed the peace treaty from the beginning, calling it a surrender to inferior beings. He had lost a son in the war, and his hatred for humans burned like a cold fire. He approached Vila with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Princess," he said, bowing slightly, "you look radiant tonight, though I must say your choice of companion is questionable." He looked at with open contempt. "My husband is here by right," Vila said carefully, "as the treaty requires." "Ah yes, the treaty." Merk's voice dripped with poison. The treaty that has you sharing a bed with an animal. Tell me, princess, does he perform adequately? Or do humans fail in that area as they fail in all others? Vila's face went cold. Around them, other nobles had stopped to listen, watching with eager eyes. You forget yourself, Lord Merk, Vila said quietly. Do I? I speak what many think but dare not say. You have shamed yourself, princess. You have shamed your family and your empire. All for what? Peace with creatures who should be our slaves. Merk stepped closer, his voice rising. Your father may have lost his courage, but some of us still remember what we are. Some of us still have pride. His hand shot out, reaching for Vila's arm. It never touched her. Moved so fast that no one saw him coming. One moment he was standing in the background, invisible. The next, he had Merk's wrist in his grip, twisted at an angle that made the noble gasp in pain. The room went silent. His face was calm, almost peaceful, but his eyes had changed. The tiredness was gone, replaced by something cold and empty, like looking into the void of space. I apologize, said softly, his voice carrying through the silent room. I thought you were attacking my wife. I must have been mistaken. Merk's face twisted with rage and pain. Release me, you filthy creature. Do you know who I am? Yes, said. You are someone who just threatened an imperial princess, in public, in front of witnesses. He tilted his head slightly. I wonder what the penalty for that is under law. The nobles around them shifted uncomfortably. Was right. What Merk had done could be considered an act of treason. Held the grip for one more moment, then released it. Merk stumbled backward, clutching his wrist. My apologies for the misunderstanding, said, bowing slightly. Then he stepped back to his place, 3 steps behind Vila as if nothing had happened. The reception continued, but the atmosphere had changed. People whispered and stared. Merk disappeared quickly, his face burning with humiliation. Later that night, Vila stood in her quarters, looking out at the stars. She heard the door open and knew it was without turning around. That was foolish, she said. You could have started a diplomatic incident. Merk has powerful friends. He disrespected you, replied simply. I can handle insults. I have heard worse. Perhaps, was quiet for a moment, but you should not have to. Vila finally turned to face him. He stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. You moved very fast, she said slowly. Faster than I have seen anyone move, even trained warriors. Said nothing. My brother found fragments of your military record. They call you the Reaper. They say you have killed more enemies than some armies. Still was silent. Vila stepped closer. Who are you really? What are you? For a long moment just looked at her. Then, for the first time since they had met, something like emotion flickered across his face. It was gone so quickly she almost missed it. I am what the war made me, he said quietly. Nothing more, nothing less. He bowed and turned to leave. Vila called. He stopped. Thank you, she said, for defending me, even if it was foolish. Did not turn around. I made a vow, I intend to keep it. Then he was gone. Vila stood alone in the starlight, her thoughts spinning. She had married a human because she was told to. She had expected nothing from him, wanted nothing from him. But now, for the first time, she found herself curious. Who was this quiet man who moved like lightning and spoke like he had nothing left to lose? What had the war done to him? And why did he look at her sometimes like she was the only light in a very dark universe? She did not have answers, but she was beginning to want them. And that scared her more than anything had in a very long time. 6 months after the wedding, the peace was starting to feel real. Trade routes opened between human and worlds. Ambassadors were exchanged. Children on both sides grew up without knowing the sound of bombs. Vila found herself changing too, though she did not want to admit it. She no longer avoided. They ate breakfast together sometimes, speaking about small things, nothing important. She had started to notice the way he smiled slightly when she made a joke, the way he always made sure her cup was filled before his own. He was still a mystery to her. He never spoke about his past, never shared his pain. But she had learned to read his silences, to understand the things he did not say. One evening, they walked together in the palace gardens. The silver trees glowed softly in the darkness, and the air smelled of flowers that had no name in any human language. "Do you miss Earth?" Vila asked. Considered the question. "I miss the idea of it. The place I remember does not exist anymore. The war changed everything." "What do you miss most?" "Rain," he said after a moment. "Real rain falling from clouds is beautiful, but there is no rain here." Vila had never thought about rain. On her world, water came from underground rivers and recycling systems. She tried to imagine water falling from the sky and found that she could not. "Perhaps one day I can take you to Earth," she said. "You could show me this rain." Looked at her surprised. "You would want that?" "I am curious about your world, about what made you who you are." Something soft passed through his eyes. He opened his mouth to respond. An explosion shook the palace. The ground trembled, alarms screamed. In the distance, fire bloomed against the night sky. His demeanor changed instantly. The soft expression vanished, replaced by cold focus. His body shifted into a stance Vila had seen before, the stance of a predator ready to strike. "Get behind me," he said. "What is happening?" More explosions, screams, the sound of weapons firing. Grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the palace. "We need to get inside, now." They ran through corridors filled with chaos. Servants fled in terror. Guards rushed past shouting orders. Smoke filled the air. A squad of soldiers appeared ahead of them, blocking the way. But they were not palace guards. Their armor was different, marked with a symbol Vila recognized. Commander's personal forces. "Princess Vila," the squad leader said, raising his weapon. "You will come with us." Pushed Vila behind him. "What is the meaning of this?" "The old order is being restored," the soldier said. "The treaty is void. The human will be executed, and the princess will be held until proper arrangements can be made." Vila's blood went cold. A coup was staging a coup. Commander had always opposed the peace. He was a hero of the war, a legend among the military. He had conquered 100 worlds and never lost a battle, and he believed that peace with humans was the worst shame the Empire had ever suffered. "Where is my father?" Vila demanded. "Where is the Emperor?" The soldier smiled coldly. "The Emperor is being taken care of. Now come, princess. Do not make this difficult." "Did not move. She is not going anywhere." The soldier laughed. "And what will you do, human? There are 6 of us and 1 of you. We are trained warriors of the Empire. You are nothing." Was silent for a moment. Then he said very quietly, "I am giving you 1 chance to walk away." The soldiers laughed harder. The squad leader raised his weapon. "Kill the human, take the princess alive." What happened next lasted less than 5 seconds. Moved. He did not seem to accelerate, just suddenly was somewhere else, inside the guard of the nearest soldier. His hand struck the soldier's throat, crushing it. In the same motion, he took the soldier's weapon and fired 3 times. 3 soldiers fell, dead before they hit the ground. The remaining 2 tried to react, but was already among them. He broke one soldier's arm, took his gun, and shot him in the head. The last soldier managed to fire once, the blast scorching the wall where it had been a moment before. Then was behind him, and the soldier's neck snapped with a sound like breaking wood. 6 bodies lay on the floor, stood among them, not even breathing hard. Vila stared at him. She had seen warriors fight her entire life. She had never seen anything like this. Picked up 2 more weapons and handed one to her. "Can you shoot?" "Yes," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Yes, I can shoot." "Good, stay close to me." They moved through the palace, avoiding the main corridors where fighting was heaviest. Seemed to know exactly where to go, which routes were safe, which were dangerous. He moved like a ghost, and Vila followed. They encountered more of soldiers. Each time killed them before they could react. He was fast, efficient, merciless. He fought like a machine designed for one purpose. Finally, they reached Vila's personal chambers. Inside, they found 3 of her loyal guards, wounded but alive. "Princess," one gasped, "thank the stars, we thought you were dead." "What is happening?" Vila demanded. "Where is my father?" The guard's face was grim. "Commander has taken the throne room. The Emperor is his prisoner, has already broadcast to the Empire. He says the royal family has betrayed them by making peace with humans. He says he is restoring honor." Vila felt the world crumbling around her. Her father captured, her home in flames, everything she knew destroyed. "We have to get out," the guard continued. "There is a shuttle waiting. We can take you to safety, Princess. Regroup with loyalist forces." "And leave my father to die," Vila shook her head. "I will not abandon him." "Princess, be reasonable, has hundreds of soldiers. His elite guard surrounds the throne room. It would be suicide to attempt a rescue." Spoke for the first time. "How many soldiers?" The guard looked at him. "What?" "In the throne room, how many soldiers does have?" "At least 50 of his personal guard, the best warriors in the Empire." Nodded slowly. He checked his weapons, counted his ammunition. Vila said, her voice tight, "What are you doing?" "You trusted me when you married me," he said. "You trusted me with your life. Now trust me to keep my vow." "You cannot fight 50 soldiers alone. That is madness." Looked at her. His eyes were calm, cold, absolutely certain. "You are my wife," he said. "Your father is my family now. Your people are my people." He paused. "I have fought worse odds. I have survived worse nights." Vila grabbed his arm. "Please, I cannot lose you too." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or something warmer. "You will not lose me," he said softly. "I promise." He pulled away gently and walked to the door. "Stay here," he said. "Keep her safe," he told the guards. "I will send word when it is over." Vila called. He stopped at the doorway. "Come back," she said. "That is an order." Smiled, the first real smile she had ever seen from him. It changed his whole face, made him look younger, almost gentle. "Yes, Princess," he said. Then he disappeared into the smoke and chaos, and Vila was left with nothing but fear and the terrible sound of war. Moved through the burning palace like a shadow with teeth. For 6 months he had been quiet, patient. He had let them mock him, let them think he was weak. He had played the role of the harmless human, the political tool, the nobody. Now the mask was gone. He traveled through service corridors that the servants had shown him during his wanderings. He knew the palace better than most guards, had mapped every passage, every hidden door, every weakness. Information was a weapon, and collected weapons. A patrol of 4 soldiers rounded a corner ahead. Did not slow down. He fired twice while still moving, dropped 2 of them, then closed the distance before the others could aim. A knife appeared in his hand, taken from one of the bodies behind him. 2 quick strikes, and 4 more bodies joined the growing count. He kept moving. Vila watched through the palace security system, her hands trembling as she manipulated the controls. The cameras showed her things she could not fully believe. Encountered 8 soldiers guarding a checkpoint. He killed 3 with gunfire, then threw himself into the remaining 5. The fight lasted 6 seconds. When he walked away, nothing moved behind him. A squad of 12 rushed down a corridor toward him, did not retreat. He advanced, firing, moving, always moving. He used their bodies as shields, their weapons as tools. He turned their numbers against them, forcing them to block each other's shots. When the smoke cleared, 12 soldiers lay dead or dying. He never stopped, never hesitated, never showed mercy. Stars above, one of Vila's guards whispered, watching the feed. "What is he?" Vila did not answer. She could not find words. She had known was dangerous. She had suspected there was more to him than he showed. But this was beyond anything she had imagined. This was not a man fighting. This was a force of nature, unstoppable and absolute. Reached the outer perimeter of the throne room. Had posted guards at every entrance, layers of defense meant to stop any rescue attempt. He stopped in the shadows and assessed the situation. 20 soldiers ahead, spread across multiple positions. Heavy weapons, good cover. A direct assault would be costly even for him. So he did not make a direct assault. Instead, he climbed. The palace ceilings were high, decorated with ancient carvings and support beams. Pulled himself up, moving silently through the darkness above the soldiers' heads. They never thought to look up. Why would they? No one attacked from above. No one human, anyway. He dropped among them like death falling from the sky. The first soldier died before he knew was there. The second died trying to turn around. The third managed to shout a warning before his blade found his throat. Then chaos erupted. Fought in the darkness, using the confusion and the shadows. Soldiers fired at each other, unable to track the ghost among them. He moved constantly, never in the same place twice, striking and vanishing. In 3 minutes, 20 soldiers were dead. Collected more ammunition from the bodies, and continued toward the throne room. On a hidden Terran ship orbiting the planet, Park monitored everything through hacked communication channels. She had been his handler for years, his link to command during dozens of impossible missions. She had never seen him like this. She said through their encrypted channel, "Extraction is ready. We have a shuttle standing by. You can get out right now." "Not yet," replied. His voice was calm, steady, as if he were discussing the weather instead of fighting a war alone. "The Emperor is not your mission. Your mission was to survive, to represent humanity in the peace process. The peace process will die if the Emperor dies. We'll restart the war. Millions more will die." Pause to reload. "I will not let that happen. There are still at least 50 elite guards between you and the throne room. You cannot take them all. Watch me." The channel went silent. Closed her eyes. She had recruited 15 years ago, had seen him grow from a talented soldier into something else entirely. Something that scared her sometimes. Something that she was not sure was entirely human anymore. But she trusted him. She had always trusted him. "Good luck," she whispered to the empty air. "Come back alive." Reached the final corridor before the throne room. Ahead, 30 of his elite guards stood in formation. They had heard the fighting, heard the reports. They knew something was coming. They were not prepared for what arrived. Walked toward them openly. No hiding now. No stealth. Just a single human walking toward 30 of the Empire's finest warriors. The guard captain laughed. "Is this what we were afraid of? One human, kill him." They opened fire. Was not there any more. He moved through the corridor like water through rocks, never where the bullets were, always where they were not. He seemed to know where each shot would go before it was fired, his body responding to dangers faster than thought. He reached the first line of guards and became death. He did not fight like in. They relied on strength, on overwhelming power, fought like something else, something that turned their size and armor into weaknesses. He found the gaps, the joints, the soft places. He used their own momentum against them. Guards fell. 1, then 3, then 7. They could not hit him, could not catch him, could not even see him clearly. He took wounds. A blade sliced his arm. A shot grazed his side. He ignored them, kept moving, kept killing. Pain was just information, and information could be processed later. The corridor became a graveyard. When the last guard fell, stood among the bodies, covered in blood that was mostly not his own. His breathing was heavier now, his movements slightly slower. but his eyes were the same, cold and empty and absolutely focused. 20 soldiers left, between him and the throne room. He checked his weapons, almost out of ammunition. His body was starting to fail, wounds taking their toll. It did not matter. He had made a vow. Walked toward the throne room doors. They were massive, ancient, built to withstand sieges. He did not have the strength to break them down. But he did not need to. The doors opened from inside. A guard captain stood there, weapon raised, ready to fire. Was faster. The captain fell and stepped into the throne room, ready to finish what he had started. Back in Vila's chambers, she watched the security feed with tears in her eyes. She watched one man do what armies could not. She watched her husband walk through fire and come out the other side still standing. She had married a human to end a war. She had thought him weak, thought him insignificant. She had never been more wrong about anything in her entire life. She whispered to the screen, "Please, please come back to me." It was the first time she had admitted, even to herself, that she wanted him too. The throne room of the empire was the most sacred place in their civilization. Ancient pillars carved with the names of heroes reached toward a ceiling painted with stars. The throne itself was made from the metal of the first ship that had carried to the stars, thousands of years ago. Tonight it was a prison. Emperor Nox knelt in chains before his own throne. His face was bloody, his royal robes torn, but his eyes still burned with defiance. Around him stood 50 of Commander's elite guards, the finest warriors the Empire had ever produced. And on the throne sat himself. He was massive, even by standards. His body was enhanced with combat implants, cybernetic systems that made him faster and stronger than any natural being. He had fought in over 100 battles and never lost. He was considered the greatest warrior alive. He looked bored. "The princess has escaped," one of his officers reported. "We are searching the palace." "She will be found," said dismissively. "What matters is that we have the emperor. The old fool will sign whatever I put in front of him, and then the real work begins." Emperor Nox spat blood on the floor. "I will sign nothing. You are a traitor. The people will never accept you." "The people will accept whoever keeps them safe," replied. "And I will keep them safe by finishing what we should have finished 30 years ago. Humanity will burn, and the empire will be pure again." The throne room doors exploded inward. Everyone turned. Through the smoke and debris walked a single figure, small, human, covered in blood and ash. Stopped in the center of the room and looked around at the 50 warriors surrounding him. Stared for a moment, then laughed. "Is this a joke? One human, you sent one human against me." Said nothing. His eyes found the emperor, checked that he was alive, then moved too. "I am here for the emperor," said. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "Release him and I will let you live." The guards laughed. Even the emperor looked shocked at the absurdity of the statement. Stood from the throne, his massive form unfolding like a nightmare given flesh. He was nearly 4 feet taller than, his arms thick as tree trunks, his eyes glowing with cybernetic enhancement. "Let me live," smiled. "Human, do you know how many of your kind I have killed? Do you know what I do to creatures like you?" "Yes," said. "I read the reports. You were very thorough." "Then you know you have no chance. Surrender now and I will make your death quick. Fight and I will make it last for days." Cracked his neck, a small pop that echoed in the silent throne room. "I have had worse odds," he said. Stopped smiling. "Kill him." 50 warriors charged. What happened next would become legend throughout the galaxy. It would be studied in military academies for centuries. It would change how every species thought about humanity. Did not retreat, he did not hide, he attacked. He used the throne room's pillars for cover, its ancient architecture for tactical advantage. He made the guards' numbers work against them, forced them to cluster, to block each other. He was never where they expected, always appearing from angles they had not considered. He killed with terrible efficiency, a blade to the throat, a broken neck, a weapon turned against its owner. Every movement had purpose, every action led to death. Guards fell 5, 10, 20. They wounded him, a sword cut deep into his shoulder, a blast burned his leg, but he did not stop, he could not stop, he had made a promise. The elite guards of the Empire, the finest warriors of a civilization that had conquered half the galaxy, could not kill one human. 30 guards down, 40, 45. The last 5 guards broke and ran. Let them go, he had bigger prey. Stepped down from the throne, his face no longer amused. For the first time in decades, something that might have been fear flickered in his eyes. "What are you?" he whispered. Stood among the bodies, breathing hard, blood dripping from wounds he had stopped counting. His left arm hung useless at his side, bones broken somewhere along the way. His vision was blurring at the edges. "I am a husband," he said. "I am keeping my vow." Drew his blade. It was a massive weapon designed for his cybernetic strength, capable of cutting through ship hulls. "Then you will die for your vow." They charged each other. The fight was not elegant. It was brutal, primal, 2 predators tearing at each other with everything they had. Was stronger, faster, augmented beyond natural limits. His blade carved through the air with impossible speed. But was something else. He read movements like a language, predicted attacks before they came. He could not match strength, so he did not try. Instead, he deflected, redirected, turned power against itself. His blade missed by inches. His knife found joints in the commander's armor, slicing cables, damaging systems. They danced across the throne room, leaving trails of blood on the ancient floor. Landed a blow that shattered ribs, felt them break, felt the pain scream through his body. He did not fall. He used the momentum of the blow to spin, to drive his blade into his knee. The commander roared and staggered. They broke apart, both wounded, both dying slowly. "You cannot win," gasped. "Even if you kill me, you are finished. You will bleed out before help arrives." "Maybe," said. He could barely stand now. Everything was fatting, going gray at the edges. "But you will die first." He raised his knife one last time. Swung his blade in a final, desperate strike. Moved. He was slow, too slow. The blade caught his side, cut deep, probably fatal. But it did not stop him. His knife found his throat. For a moment they stood frozen, the great commander and the small human, locked together in death. Then fell. Stood over the body of the most feared warrior in the Empire. He looked down at the man who had conquered worlds, who had killed millions, who had thought himself invincible. "My name," whispered, "is remember it." He turned to the Emperor. Nox stared at him with wide eyes. This human, this creature he had dismissed as nothing, had just killed 50 elite warriors and the greatest commander the Empire had ever known. "Your Majesty," said, his voice was fatting, everything was fatting. "Are you hurt?" "I know I am well." The Emperor struggled against his chains. "You, how?" Walked toward him, each step in agony. He found a key on one of the bodies, freed the Emperor's hands. "Your daughter," said, "she is safe. I promise to protect her." He smiled, a small, tired expression. Then his legs gave out and collapsed to the floor of the throne room, surrounded by the bodies of his enemies, finally still. Vila ran through the palace corridors, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. The fighting had stopped. The security feeds had shown falling, shown collapsing. She did not remember giving orders to her guards, did not remember telling them to secure the palace. She only remembered running, faster than she had ever run in her life. The throne room doors stood open, damaged from its entrance. Vila burst through them and stopped. The scene before her looked like something from ancient legends, stories of heroes who fought against impossible odds. Bodies lay everywhere, the elite guards of a traitor scattered like broken toys. On the throne room floor, surrounded by the fallen, lay a small human man. Her father knelt beside him, pressing cloth to wounds that would not stop bleeding. Avila screamed. She ran to him, fell to her knees in the blood, took his face in her hands. He was so pale, so cold. His breathing was shallow, barely there. "I need medics," she shouted. "Now someone help him." Her father looked at her with something like wonder. "Vila, he killed them all, 50 warriors and himself. I watched him. I could not believe what I was seeing." "I do not care what he did. I care that he lives." Vila's voice broke. Tears she did not know she had been holding streamed down her face. "Please, please stay with me." His eyes opened slightly, dim, fading, but still there. "Vila," he whispered, "you are safe." "Yes, I am safe. Because of you I am safe. Now you need to stay, you need to fight." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I am tired of fighting." "Then rest and heal, but do not leave me." She held him closer, her tears falling on his face. "That is an order." Medical teams arrived, swarming around them. They loaded onto a stretcher attached machines, shouted terms Vila did not understand. She followed them, refusing to let go of his hand. "Princess," one of the doctors said gently, "his wounds are severe. We will do everything we can, but you should prepare yourself." "He will live," Vila said. Her voice was iron. "He has to live." The next 3 weeks were the longest of Vila's life. Lay in a medical pod, machines keeping him alive while his body slowly healed. He had lost so much blood that his heart had stopped twice. They had rebuilt bones, repaired organs, sealed wounds that would have killed anyone else. But he held on. Vila stayed by his side every day. She read reports, attended meetings, managed the aftermath of the coup, all from a chair beside his bed. She did not care what people thought. She did not care about tradition or propriety. Her husband was dying, and she would not leave him. The galaxy watched in shock as the truth emerged. Security footage from the palace spread across every network, every planet. A single human, walking through an army, defeating warriors that entire fleets had failed to stop. The Reaper, they called him, the Ghost, the one who does not die. Humans who had been seen as weak and fragile were suddenly viewed in a new light. If one human could do this, what could 1,000,000 of them do? What could 1,000,000,000? The treaty was no longer seen as charity to a defeated species. It was recognized for what it truly was, a partnership with something dangerous, something that should never be underestimated. On the 22nd day, opened his eyes. Vila was asleep in her chair, exhausted from weeks of worry. She woke to find him watching her, his tired eyes soft in a way she had never seen before. "You look terrible," he said. His voice was rough, barely a whisper. Vila laughed and cried at the same time. She took his hand, held it to her face, let herself feel everything she had been holding back. "You almost died," she said. "You almost left me." "I promised to come back." "Yes, you did, and then you almost broke that promise." Was quiet for a moment. Then slowly, he raised his other hand and touched her face, wiping away her tears. "I am sorry," he said. "I did not mean to make you cry." "You stupid, brave, impossible man." Vila leaned forward and pressed her forehead to his. "Why? Why did you do it? You could have escaped. You could have lived." Looked at her, and in his eyes she saw something she had not expected. Something deep and warm and true. "Because you are worth dying for," he said simply. "Because somewhere along the way the vow I made stopped being duty. It became something else." He paused. "It became love." Vila's breath caught. She had grown up in a world where marriages were politics, where love was weakness, where duty came before everything. But looking at this human, this impossible man who had shattered armies for her, she realized that everything she had been taught was wrong. "I love you too," she whispered. "I did not want to, I tried not to, but I do." She kissed him then, soft and gentle, mindful of his wounds. It was their first real kiss, and it felt like the beginning of something new. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy changed. Emperor Nox formally honored in a ceremony broadcast to every world. He granted him the title of Imperial Defender, the first human to ever receive such recognition. He spoke of courage, of sacrifice, of what true strength really meant. The Terran alliance became real, not just a piece of paper but a genuine partnership. Humans and worked together, learned from each other, built something neither could have created alone. And through it all stood 3 steps behind his wife, quiet and watchful just as he always had. But now, sometimes, Vila would reach back and take his hand. She would pull him forward, make him stand beside her where he belonged. "You are not my shadow," she told him one evening as they watched the sunset over the crystal towers of, "You are my partner, my equal." "Old habits," said, "hard to break." "Then I will break them for you," she smiled at him. "That is my vow." They stood together as the stars came out, 2 people from different worlds who had found something rare and precious in each other. Across the galaxy, stories spread about the human who had faced an army alone. They became legends, then myths, growing with each telling until the truth seemed impossible. But those who had been there knew the truth was more impossible than any myth. They knew that one man had walked into the fire because he had made a promise. They knew that humans, these small and fragile creatures, were not weak at all. They were something far more dangerous. They were beings who could love so deeply that they would face any odds, endure any pain, break any enemy, for the people they had sworn to protect. And in a universe of warriors and conquerors, that made them the most terrifying thing of all. Looked at his wife as she smiled at the stars. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That I am glad I volunteered," he said. Vila laughed, bright and real, a sound that decided was his favorite thing in all the universe. "So am I," she said, "so am I." They walked back to the palace together, hand in hand, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. The war was over. Something better had begun.